Our studio at Adisawe Kanda and our numerous affiliates at streaming live on 3news.com and on Facebook 3FM 92.7. Coming up this morning, Ghana makes significant progress in ongoing discussion with IMF, but minority spokesperson on finance Isaac Adongo insists on expenditure cut.
But we need to now begin to look at the other rigidities with the budget, particularly statutory funds and its alignment to government priorities.
Meanwhile, former President John Dramani Mahama says government delayed in taking a decision to seek support from IMF.
I say IMF, you won't contemu. Man contema, yeah, the ambulance the best one wako, and then ambulance near them, and nearby IMF for.
Plus, Teachers and Education Workers Union of Ghana will threaten strike from April 15 over 3-year strike and professional allowance, which is in arrears.
So one is expecting that when we go into the records, it will show that indeed payment has been made, but no payment has been made.
And later you'll hear from some health professionals who insist on working abroad despite a directive that bars them from working in the UK.
Not just me, but basically everyone would like to travel outside of this country.
We've got details of these and many more coming up shortly. Do stay with us. Thanks for your time, and now the news in details. Ghana is making significant progress in its pursuit of a bailout from the International Monetary Fund on the sidelines of the spring meetings in Washington, USA. Minority spokesperson on finance Isaac Adongo, who is part of Ghana's delegation in Washington, says government must cut its expenditure. Here's a report filed by my colleague Sani Abdul Rahman from Washington.
The IMF is predicting a much lower deficit for Ghana compared to the government earlier projection. Quite some good news on that front, but also a number of MPs are around and participating in sessions about the role of Parliament in ensuring the executive does not excessively spend to plunge the economy in debt crisis like the one we are seeing now. We are learning that China has agreed to drop its demand for multilateral development banks like the IMF and the World Bank to share losses alongside other creditors in sovereign debt restructurings for poor nations. Isaac Adongo, however, said the bailout support would be meaningless if the government does not cut its expenditure.
We would be able to address quite significantly the debt service question with the debt restructuring and the common framework debt treatment and all of that. But we need to now begin to look at the other rigidities with the budget, particularly statutory funds and its alignment to government priorities.
The Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, and officials from the Bank of Ghana are still yet to say a word to us here. Sani Abdurrahman from the spring meetings here in Washington.
In a related development, former President John Dramani Mahama says the New Patriotic Party should have gone to the International Monetary Fund a long time ago. The former president made the pronouncement when he visited Ayensuano in the eastern region yesterday as part of his campaign tour. Take a listen.
IMF show say Omuma program. Like I said 2015, you call IMF. Yes, I'm Ambo Boniti. You see, and to me, I'm sure my no 18-year call IMF. And that year, call IMF, you're 19-year call, and you be a pono in your room. Most of the Mabuko to Jemo Pacho, a beba January, a beba March, I say a beba May, a beba Dabang. IMF also say more than Montreal or Mantem. Because I said lecture, Bikacho Muse. I say IMF, you won't contemu. Man kotema, yeah, the ambulance the best one wako, and then ambulance near them.
And now let's do some health-related stories. It's a move that the World Health Organization hopes will safeguard countries like Ghana against losing its best health professionals, but it seems the red list by the United Kingdom to limit the targeted recruitment of health professionals will have exactly the opposite effect. My colleague Godwin Asidiba visited the Accra Psychiatric Hospital, where nurses are determined to leave and hospital administrators don't have the power to stop them.
It used to be filled with numerous health workers, but the once busy Accra Psychiatric Hospital at the time of our visit looks deserted. Many of the health workers here have left to seek better working conditions abroad. Abigail Aloriwe is one of them.
We are working in Ghana, but there are certain things we are not getting. let's say I'm a nurse, but if I'm struggling with my health, if I need medications I need to buy, if I have to go to the hospital like every other person.
Letitia Blay, 36 years, is the oldest worker here among the ladies. She has been working at the Accra Psychiatric Hospital for 13 years.
Not just me, but basically everyone would like to travel outside of this country. For their family, for themselves, at least to get money. I am struggling as a health worker in Ghana.
The Deputy Director of Administration at the Accra Psychiatric Hospital, Julius Kusalusuo, is worried the continual poor working environment means decisions like the one the UK made will have no impact on retention of staff if conditions don't improve.
For 2022 alone, if you add leave of absence to vacation of post or resignation, 55 nurses left the hospital. This has had a very serious impact on the hospital.
To education and policy think tank EduWatch wants government to take a second look at the food component of the free senior high school since it takes 70% of the budget. Programs manager of EduWatch, Divine Kpe, speaking to 3FM, said the policy must be redesigned to rope in parents to contribute to financing the education of their children.
So if you are having a program and 70% of your entire budget to running a school is just going for feeding, then it creates a lot of burden on you. And therefore there's a need for you to look at how you can share the cost. And we always make the point that the government will have to be frank with itself to get to a point to invite parents' participation, especially at the feeding aspect, so that that burden of 70% of your budget to just for feeding can be made less burden for you.
Well, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to the first news bulletin here on 3FM 92.7 with me, George Kwaning. And to the Labour Front, where the Teachers and Education Workers Union TEU has threatened to strike from April 15. The union is demanding the payment of professional and skills development allowance, which is in arrears for 3 years. Here's Mark Ranch, General Secretary of TEU.
The President says we have paid. So one is expecting that when we go into the records, it will show that indeed payment has been made. Right. But no payment has been made. And following up with the agencies concerned, GES, fair wages, and the like, it appears that the payment has not been made. Right from the word go, approval was made for both teaching and non-teaching. President says I have paid to both teaching and non-teaching. So ideally I would say yes. But we also know the economic conditions that the nation finds itself. So even if we are not able to, and we are able to pay what is due us even for this year, I'm sure our members would be okay.
The union has petitioned the National Labour Commission about this intended strike, but the commission says the 4-day notice is not acceptable.
If you bring notice to embark on the strike on the evening of 11th, which is by close of work, and you want to embark on the strike on 15th, virtually you have only given about 4 days notice.
That is correct.
And I don't think that is right.
He noted that both TEU and government had failed to report back to the commission after the commission had directed them to resolve the impasse last year.
On our records, they appeared before us on the 22nd August.
The same issue.
They put across their case.
Yeah.
They were asked to engage, and they agreed. The union strike is called off, the same as remain, for parties to engage on fruitful deliberation.
That is correct.
So the parties that agreed, so one would expect that if things did not go well, a report will be made to us by both parties or either of them. But the next thing we hear is that this notice of strike.
However, the National Labour Commission has cautioned the union against a short notice. Executive Secretary of the Commission, Ofosu Asamoah, says both TEU and government have failed to report back to the Commission after the Commission had directed them to resolve the impasse last year.
If you bring notice to embark on the strike on the evening of 11th, which is by close of work, and you want to embark on the strike on sick leave, virtually you are only given about 4 days notice.
That is correct.
And I don't think that is right. On our records, they appeared before us on the 22nd August.
The same issue.
They put across their case.
Yeah.
They were asked to engage, and they agreed. The union strike is called off. The same must remain for parties to engage on fruitful deliberation.
That is correct.
So the parties that agree. So one will expect that if things did not go well, a report will be made to us by both parties.
Let's do some politics now. And founding member of CDD Ghana and former UN governance advisor, Professor Bafo Agyemangua, has described as flimsy the petition and counter-petition from both the National Democratic Congress, NDC, and the New Patriotic Party, NPP. Speaking on TV3's News 360, Professor Agyemangua said the needless agitations from the two leading parties is bad development. Take a listen.
If you have not observed election in this country since 1992, then what we are witnessing will be a surprise. But I'm not surprised by this. Towards every election of this Fourth Republic, we tend to hear these kinds of what I would call pre-election gymnastics, pre-election comedies by the political parties. I'm not surprised at all. Of course, in their struggle to retain power or to get power back to themselves, these two parties engage in needless agitations, putting Ghanaians, destroying their peace, as I should say.
Well, on that note, we draw the curtains on this morning's news. For more news updates, just log on to our website, is 3news.com. My name is George Kwaning. In a world where you can be anything, just be kind. It costs nothing to be kind. John Hughes and Helen continues with the morning show. Thanks for listening.